Ladies and gentlemen, it is once again Powhatan Fight Week, the fight that we have been waiting for. Ankalaev versus Pereira. Finally, we get some fresh blood for Pereira. I know he just fought Khalil Roundtree, but this has been a long time coming for Magomed Ankalaev. It's been, 2 or 3 years since everyone's been saying this guy is the future champ of the light heavyweight division. He got his shot against Jan Blachowicz. He blew it. He had to work his way back with what? A win over Johnny Walker and a win over Alexander Rakic. But here he is. It's finally happening during Ramadan for Ankalaev. A great main event, a great co-main event. I was going to say good, but it is a great co-main event. It's going to be 3 rounds, but Gaethje versus Fiziev 2. The first fight was absolutely insane. And this card overall is very sneakily good. The prelims, a lot of great matchups. Main card, great matchups outside of the women's MMA fight. But even that one should be decent. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card. I'm going to give you my early lean, my early pick, and a little bit of a breakdown. This is before all of my tape study goes into it. I just like to give my opinion out there because I know a lot of people DM me earlier on in the week and be like, what do you think about this fight? Well, here's the video for it. You can watch it for yourself. But before we get into UFC 313, as always, we got to recap last week. The straight bets and the parlays. We had 7 bets out. We went 3-3-1 for a net loss of 0.02 units. And somehow, if you watched the Best Bet show last week, somehow I managed to give you all 3 bets that lost. I went 3-3-1, and I managed to give you 3 bets that lost. So that sucks. I apologize for that, but we did hit Cody Brundage. We hit a parlay on Pinto and Cop. If Rebovic's got that decision, would have been a nice 3-unit swing there. Lost the prop there, and then 1-1 on the round prop bets. So pretty much nothing happened as far as the straight bets and the parlays. The DFS plays were not great. They just weren't. We had a lot of fights go to decision, and when you're playing the lower on a lot of these fighters, then that's not really going to treat you well if the fights are going to decision, and there was basically no grappling. So we went with a lot of lowers there as we were getting burned on a lot of the higher and the fights ended early weeks prior, and it did not pay off. So we lost 2.25 units on the DFS plays. So not a great week last week, but we look to turn that around, UFC 313. And I think we got a great card to do it. So let's get into, actually, before we do that, there's just the recap. If you want my bets, you can jump in the Homofied Picks premium membership. Use code HeyJive. You get a free trial. We're still positive on the year, plus 5.84 units on the year. So we're still in the positive. We had a negative week last week, but we could turn it around here. Let's get into the first fight of the night. We got Ozzy Diaz and Jordan Santos. I got to give my boy Jordan Santos some credit because he cashed me as a plus, 300, plus 350 dog on his Contender Series fight against that fraud Will Curry. So I got a special place in my heart for Jordan Santos, taking a leap of faith on him at plus 350. He cashed for me there, and now he's the favorite in his UFC debut. So automatically, there's red flags there, okay? Red flags because it's his UFC debut. He was just a big dog on the Contender Series. And I know a lot of people don't like when I talk about, betting-wise, but that's just how I think, man. That's just how I think. I think of it through the betting perspective. But he's about a minus 180, minus 200 favorite right now. Ozzy Diaz, never thought he was really that good. He got knocked out by Joe Pyfer on his Contender Series fight. Got a couple wins, and then they bring him back for pretty much a layup fight for Ming Yang Zhang. And I still don't know why he's in the UFC. I guess he probably signed like a 2-fight deal or something like that, but he's 34 years of age. He fought at 205 his last time out against Ming Yang Zhang, but he is a true 185er. And I think Jordan Santos should win this fight, but Ozzy Diaz is not like a terrible fighter. He just doesn't really do anything like all that great. He's a decent overall guy. His striking is okay. His grappling is not really a strength of his, and his chin can be cracked. Now, Jordan Santos, the reason I liked him on the Contender Series is he was going up against a grappler who I did, based on the tape that I watched, Will Curry doesn't like to be pressured, and if you pressure a grappler, it's going to be tough for them to get takedowns. And Jordan Santos showed on tape he had a really solid takedown defense game. So what happened in that fight? Pretty much just boxed him up, defended the takedowns, and won the fight. I think it was a 30-27. In this one, Ozzy Diaz is a much better striker than Will Curry, but is he durable enough to take Jordan Santos punches? Jordan Santos, I don't think has like some crazy power, but I do think Jordan Santos will probably be able to outstrike him. I don't see a lot of takedown threat from either guy. So I'm going to go with Jordan Santos for the early pick. But considering his odds, UFC debut in T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, you never know with the guy. So this is probably a stay away one for me, but I'll take Jordan Santos for the early pick. Moving on, we got another Santos. We got Myron Santos taking on Francis Marshall. And this is another matchup that I think is really good, but the odds are pretty wide. Myron Santos is like minus 350 right now, and I don't know how you can really say that. I mean, he's had one fight, not technically in the UFC because it was the tough finale. I believe it was the tough finale against Con Offley, and he knocked him out. He looked great. He is 24, very young, 15 fights, so he's got a lot of experience for a 24-year-old. And he's got really solid striking, really fast, sharp counters, and improved takedown defense. His only loss came to Dan Argueta, I think it was, and he got grappled up in that one. And I really thought Con Offley would be able to get some grappling going in that one, but he shut it down. So I think his takedown defense is much improved compared to his tape pre-UFC. And he's probably going to have to defend some takedowns here against Francis Marshall because Francis is now at ATT. He's training with guys like Mateusz Gamrot, Grant Dawson, Movsar Evloev, like really good guys at ATT, and I think that's a good move for him because he's probably going to need a grapple in this one. If it's just a straight-up striking battle, Myron Santos is the better striker. But Francis Marshall, pretty tough, decent power on the feet, but ultimately I think if he does not grapple in this fight, he's going to lose. And I don't know that he's going to have a ton of success with the grappling. Maybe it's super improved, training at ATT, but he was at ATT for his last fight. I know he took it on short notice, but he went to a split decision with Dennis Buzukja. Buzukja is not a great fighter, let's just say that. And he went to a split there. It was kind of a war. And I think if he gets into a war with Myron Santos will probably make him pay. But, if both guys are durable enough and this fight goes to a decision, I think it could maybe look a little bit closer than the odds entail. Either way, I'm going to take Myron Santos for the early pick. I think he probably gets it done. But he is just too big of a favorite for me to really have a lot of conviction in that. But either way, moving on. Alex Morono taking on Carlos Leal. Carlos Leal was, a plus 300, plus 250 underdog against Rinat Fakhretdinov in his UFC debut. And he lost the fight by unanimous decision. Now, it was the worst robbery I've ever seen. And that is not an understatement. I'm not even throwing that out there like it wasn't that bad. It was the worst robbery I have ever seen. He should have won that fight at least 29-28, if not 30-27. And the Abu Dhabi made the call to give Fakhretdinov the win. And I didn't have money on the fight at all. So I saw that from a completely unbiased lens, and I thought Carlos Leal completely won that fight. I remember walking down. We were at the Hard Rock. I walked down after the fight, and then because we were watching it upstairs in the hotel room, I walked downstairs to get a drink. I look at my phone, and I see Rinat Fakhretdinov won by unanimous decision. I was like, this has to be a mistake. It was unreal. But either way, he was a plus 200, plus 250 dog against Rinat Fakhretdinov, and now he's a minus 800 favorite against Alex Morono. That is crazy. When have we ever seen that? And it's not like Alex Morono is some bum. Obviously, he's pretty washed at this point, but his striking is pretty similar to Rinat Fakhretdinov. I just wouldn't say he's as durable. And, his cardio is probably not as good. Fakhretdinov's cardio is not that great, but it's a very similar style matchup, but I don't think Morono is as durable as Fakhretdinov, and Carlos Leal has a lot of power. And he looked juiced to the gills his last fight. So we'll see if he looks juiced to the gills in this one. But he's a guy that fought in the PFL, had some success there, and then, went to the regional scene, got a couple wins. They bring him into the UFC. He should have won his UFC debut. Now he's a massive favorite. I think he wins the fight just because he's got a lot of power. His striking is really good. His takedown defense looked good against Fakhretdinov. And Morono seems to be on a steep decline at this point. So I'm going to take Carlos Leal to win this one. He'll be my early pick. He'll probably be my official pick as well. But, the line is wide, dude. Minus 800 on a guy that lost his UFC debut as a plus 250 dog. I don't know if I've ever seen that. And it's not like he's getting some massive step down. Morono's not terrible. He's just, past his prime, on the decline, coaching his gym, not really taking his career that serious. But, we'll see. Carlos Leal is the early pick. Moving on. Bruno Ferreira, Armen Petrosyan. Great matchup here. Love this matchup. And I think this is a fight where you can look at it through the lens of Armen Petrosyan's going to be winning the fight until he doesn't. But if it hits that final bell, then I think he wins. Bruno Ferreira is a powerful dude. Lost his last one out against Abus Magomedov. And I was pretty big on Abus Magomedov in that fight, just because I think Abus is a really solid kickboxer who has the grappling in his back pocket. And Bruno gave me some scares, man. Bruno gave me some scares because he has some real power, but his grappling showed that there's some holes in it, and Abus got him to the ground in round 3 and subbed him. Petrosyan, he's just not going to take you down. Like, he's a true kickboxer. He's going to have a ton of volume, and he's probably going to be outstriking Bruno Ferreira until he doesn't, because he loves to kick those legs. He'll pump the jab out there, and he's just going to outwork you. But Bruno Ferreira could easily crack him. Now, Petrosyan has historically been very durable, until last fight out when he got knocked out by Sharon Magomedov. Now, it was a double spinning back fist, so can you read into that one too much? Probably not, because, you get hit with 2 spinning back fists, you're probably going to get knocked out. But that does raise some red flags for if his chin is still going to be there, because he's had a lot of fights in kickboxing, only 12 in MMA, but he's had a lot of kickboxing fights. He's 34, so maybe that durability is starting to crack a little bit. But I think he's winning the fight until he doesn't, and I do think Bruno Ferreira probably cracks him here. I think he probably cracks him, and considering he's the underdog, I'm going to take Bruno Ferreira for the early pick. Petrosyan's about minus 145. I think it's lined fairly right. I think it's probably around a pick 'em or so, and I'll just take the slight plus money on Bruno Ferreira. But Bruno's a guy that I've always kind of looked to fade, just because I don't think his grappling is that good. I don't know if his cardio is that good. He's a little bit undersized at middleweight at 5'10", but he does have great power. His movement from the outside is pretty good. And, he gave me some scares against Abus, who Abus is a really solid striker. It's just his cardio is just not that great. So I'll take Bruno Ferreira for the early pick, and we can move on. Ray Tsuruya taking on Joshua Van. Great matchup right here. We got 2 young guys. Tsuruya, 22. Joshua Van, 23. And Joshua Van, he is probably one of the more exciting guys at 125, and he fights all the time. He's kind of taking the Charles Johnson approach, and at times I'm like, bro, you don't need to fight every 2 or 3 months. Like, I don't want it to come back and haunt him, but he's 23, and he's a guy that takes a lot of hits in his fights because he's a pressure guy, has to walk you down, and he's going to be there to be hit. Now, this is a completely different matchup than what he's been dealing with, because Ray Tsuruya, not going to be looking to strike. And if he does, it's not going to be good. So we have a complete grappler versus a complete striker. And Joshua Van will mix in a couple takedowns here, but if he does it in this fight, he's absolutely stupid. He should be able to keep this fight on the feet, stuff the takedowns, and outbox Ray Tsuruya. But Ray Tsuruya is a really solid grappler. If he gets you down to the ground, his jiu-jitsu on the ground is really good. I don't think his wrestling is that great, but his jiu-jitsu is good. And he's been hurt on a lot of these fights on the road to the UFC, and I just can't really buy into it, man. I actually faded him with Carlos Hernandez, and Carlos Hernandez won that 3rd round, and the 1st round was actually pretty close. So if I'm going to fade him with Carlos Hernandez, I'm going to fade him with Joshua Van, because I think Joshua Van's a better fighter than Carlos Hernandez. But Van's just got to keep this fight on the feet, and I think he wins. It's the year of the undefeated fighters losing their donut, and they turn into churros. Shout out Max Holloway. And I think that's probably what happens here. So I'm going to take Joshua Van for the early pick. I think he gets this one then, either by late stoppage or a decision, but probably a decision, because Joshua Van just seems to never be able to finish these guys, Joshua Van's the early pick. Let's move on. Feature prelim. Curtis Blaydes, Rizvan Kuniev. Kuniev making his UFC debut. And he's fighting the guy that just fought for the interim title. What is going on here? I mean, is heavyweight that bad that we're going to have Rizvan Kuniev making his UFC debut against the guy that just had his chance to win a title? It was the interim, but either way, it was a title. Wild stuff, but you got to give your respect to Kuniev, because he has beaten the PFL champ, Renan Ferreira, even though it was a no contest. He beat him, and he does look to be pretty solid, but this is a different level type of fight. Like, could Kuniev knock out Curtis Blaydes? Yeah, Curtis Blaydes, when he loses, it's by knockout. But I don't know that Kuniev is like some great striker. I don't know that he's going to be able to out-wrestle Curtis Blaydes. So I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes. Like, it's a very tough fight to call because we don't really know how Kuniev looks at this level. You know, that once you get into the top 7 of the heavyweight division, that's when it gets pretty tough. Like, you could beat all these guys outside the top 10. No big deal if you're just coming into the UFC because they're trash. Heavyweight division is not good. But if you just get thrown into the top 7, then you got to start looking at it like, oh my God, this is probably a little bit too much. Now, he's had championship fights, yeah. But I'm just going to go with Curtis Blaydes for the early pick. I'm going to take a more look at Rizvan Kuniev's tape because his fight in the Contender Series lasted less than a round and really wasn't much that I could really look at. He was a massive favorite. But, yeah, I'll take Curtis Blaydes for the early pick. I think he should be able to negate the striking from Kuniev, or at least match him, defend the takedowns, maybe get his own takedowns, and we'll see what happens. But Curtis Blaydes is the early pick. Once again, if you want my bets for this card, jump on the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. Use code HeyJive. There's a link down in the description below, and you get a free trial. We're positive on the year, positive over 100 last year, and positive nearly 45 in 2023. So proven track record of winning the last 2 years, and we're winning this year. So let's keep it moving. If you need a sports book, jump on Wager Attack. There's a link down in the description below. It's available in all 50 states. You get a 200% free play bonus when you deposit. So if you deposit $100, you're going to get $200 in free play. And if you deposit with crypto, you'll get a 10% cash bonus. So if you deposit $100, you get $10 in cash added to your cash balance. It's a great sports book. I use it all the time. I'm in Florida. Hard Rock Bet is the communist party that leads the sports betting in Florida, but I can still use Wager Attack as well. So I use it there. I lived in Texas. I used it there. If you're in one of these states such as California, Texas, where you don't have a FanDuel, a DraftKings, ESPN Bet, whatever, jump on Wager Attack so you can bet on the UFC. Let's get into the main card. King Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. Ruffy's a big favorite in this one, and I kind of agree with it. All right, now a lot of people are going to be down on Ruffy because of his last performance against James Lontop, but James Lontop has an insane chin. That dude has the ability to take a punch from Francis Ngannou and still be alive. All right, and Ruffy hit him with the kitchen sink in those first 2 rounds. I don't know how he survived that. Ruffy, fighting nerds guy, we all know him. 2 fights in the UFC, round 1 knockout against Jamie Malarkey, and a decision his last time against Lontop, which was at 165 as well. So the chin for Lontop probably held up a lot better at 165 compared to 155. Taking on King Green here. I think it's a good matchup for Ruffy just to kind of see where he's at. But in all honesty, I think Ruffy finds a counter and puts away Bobby. You know, Bobby is 38 now, just lost to Paddy Pimblett. Pretty much just dove into a triangle choke, which was disgusting. I don't know how that happened, but he did it, and he's kind of been getting chinned in his losses. You know, he's got knocked out by Jalen Turner in a brutal fashion. Nearly got knocked out by Jim Miller. Like, don't forget it. Jim Miller put him on his ass, and Jim Miller's like 40. And a lot slower than Mauricio Ruffy. Also got knocked out by Drew Dober. He's a guy that uses his movement, but he keeps his hands very low, and he's just going to stab you with jabs, with twos. And if he's in the pocket with Ruffy, it's only a matter of time, in my opinion. If he's in the pocket with Ruffy, it's only a matter of time before Ruffy hits him with a deadly counter and puts him out. Because on the feet, Ruffy is super fast, super sharp. And he's not going to be able, King Green's not going to be able to keep his hands down and do his normal movement stuff without Ruffy capitalizing and absolutely taking his head off. And honestly, I don't think he's going to be able to take the shots like James Lontop. So I think Ruffy gets a KO here. He's going to be my early pick. Sucks to see, but I mean, King Green's the test you kind of got to walk through if you're going to be looking to get into the rankings, and I think Ruffy is a great matchup for King Green in this one. So Ruffy, for me, early pick. Moving on. Amanda Lemos, Yasmin Lucindo. Great matchup for women's MMA. And to me, the biggest thing that jumps off the board here is the age gap. 23 compared to 37. And Lemos has fought a lot of great fighters. But at this point, what does she have to fight for? We know she's a powerful striker, but her ground game is abysmal. And Yasmin Lucindo, even if it's not going great on the feet, I think she could look for the takedowns. Yasmin's striking is kind of similar to Lemos, but I think it's a little bit more in check. Lemos loves to just explode with big right hands and try to put you out that way, and she could do that to Yasmin Lucindo, but I think Yasmin's chin, really solid. She has a great ability to take a shot. Not that she's taking these huge shots from these strawweights, but she has a confidence enough in her striking to be able to stand in there and throw with you. And I think her wrestling is a lot better than Lemos's. Lemos's takedown defense is terrible. And I think Yasmin can win this fight. I love the age gap difference. I think Yasmin's on the up and up. Amanda Lemos fought great girls, and her losses are really only to great girls. But at the end of the day, I also don't think Lemos's fight IQ is that great. And I think Lucindo is coming into this one with looking at it as a great opportunity to keep moving up in the rankings. And Lemos is probably looking at it like, I got to fight this young, hungry girl. Yeah. Plus, we also got to look at the neck tat. All right. Both Brazilian. I don't know Lemos is, if she swings for the other team or the same team, but I'm kind of leaning towards the same team. And Lucindo, I can definitely tell you she swings for the same team. And she's got a neck tat. So I'm going to go with Yasmin Lucindo for the early pick. That's pretty much how you should look at women's MMA. Do they swing for the same team? Or do they swing for the other team? And I can confidently say Yasmin Lucindo swings for the same team, and she's got a neck tat, and she's Brazilian. So give me Lucindo. Feature bout of the night. Jalen Turner taking on Ignacio Bahamondes. Great matchup. Love the matchup. Because for once, we get one of these tall, I don't want to call them weight bullies, but they're kind of weight bullies. Both guys 6'3", and rarely do we ever see these really tall guys fight each other. They're always fighting these guys that are like 5'9", 5'10", and it's like, all right, come on. We gotta even the playing field a little bit. So finally we get that. Jalen Turner lost his last time out against Moicano a little less than a year ago. Had him knocked out in round 1 and then got taken down and pretty much gave up on the ground after he got smothered. It's crazy to me that, Jalen Turner is 14-8. That's a terrible professional record if you're looking at a guy that's, should be in the top 15. That's a terrible record. But he's fought the who's who. Moicano, Bobby Green, Mateusz Gamrot, Dan Hooker, who was supposed to fight on this card. He's fought a lot of good guys, and he's really only lost to the really top 20 of the division, top 10, top 15 in the division for the past 4 or 5 years. Bahamondes, up and up, 27 years of age, trains with Bilal Muhammad at Valet Flow. Bilal Muhammad raves about the guy. I think the guy is really good. I think he's a really solid striker, really sharp counters, and his ground game is not terrible. I know he got grappled up by Ludovic Klein, but Jalen Turner's not going to pose much of a takedown threat in this one. And if anything, if there's a grappling upside, I'd go with Bahamondes. And on the feet, I think Bahamondes can match him. I think Bahamondes is super durable. Jalen Turner, on the other hand, he's a sharp striker, but I don't think he likes getting hit. Once you saw in that Dan Hooker fight, when Dan Hooker was like, fuck it, I'm just going to walk through everything you throw, and I'm going to pressure you. Jalen Turner didn't like that. I think Bahamondes being 6'3", matching the length of Jalen Turner, something that Jalen Turner's not really used to. He's used to being on the outside and being able to hit guys at the end of his punches. Bahamondes going to be able to match that. I'm going to lean towards Bahamondes in this matchup just because I think the striking is there for Bahamondes. I know he can take a shot. I know he can throw a lot of volume. I know he's got power. And I know he could probably have some grappling upside in this one against Jalen Turner, who did not look good against Moicano. I know Moicano's a great grappler, but, when he got taken down, even in the first round, when he got taken down, wasn't really looking good for Jalen. And then he got back up and knocked him down. And then in round 2, gets taken down and gets absolutely washed. So I'm going to take Bahamondes for the early pick in this one. Great fight, though. I think it's fairly priced. And, we'll see what happens. Moving on. Co-main event. We were going to get Gaethje versus Hooker. It's going to be 5 rounds. It's going to be an absolute war. Hooker pulls out. We get Fiziev. And Fiziev, rightfully so, changed this fight to a 3-round fight. If it went 5 rounds, Gaethje would be looking a lot better to me. But it's 3 rounds. First fight was 3 rounds. I went back and watched that fight. I thought Fiziev won round 1. I thought Fiziev arguably could have won round 2. And round 3 probably went to Gaethje. But, I wouldn't say it probably went to Gaethje. It went to Gaethje, but Fiziev had his moments in round 3. I don't know why a judge gave Gaethje a 10-8. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Round 3 was very competitive. It's just that Fiziev was bleeding profusely near his eye, and that's probably why they gave him a 10-8, but still, not a 10-8. Not a 10-8 by any means. Fiziev's the younger guy, taking it on short notice, but he's also not the guy that got brutally knocked out his last time out. Now, right now, Fiziev is a minus 140 favorite right now, and I'm kind of surprised just because Gaethje won the first fight. Fiziev's taking it on short notice. So I figured Gaethje would be the favorite. But Gaethje just got brutally knocked out. Brutally knocked out. He's 36. And he's fighting a dangerous dude that's been off for a while and is probably very hungry for a win. His last 2 losses are Gaethje and the loss to Gamrot where he blew out his ACL. That was back in 2023. So he's been off for about a year and a half. I really think Fiziev could win this fight. I really do. I thought he could win the first one. And I've never been a huge Gaethje guy because he has to get hit to hit you. And that's a dangerous game. And that was a big reason why I was big on Max Holloway. It's because Max Holloway has the speed and the footwork to hit you and not get hit. So what he did to Gaethje was basically just pick away at him, move around, and Gaethje had no chance to really gain some respect because Gaethje has to wait for you to hit him to hit you back. He's not going to just stand there. Max Holloway's not going to just stand in the pocket and trade with you. That's where Gaethje thrives. Gaethje thrives with guys that'll be there to be hit because he's always been pretty durable and he's a deadly striker in the pocket. Fiziev, he's there to be hit, but if he plays his cards right, I think he could do a similar thing to Gaethje. And considering it's 3 rounds, he's only got to win 2. You come out hot, you win the first couple rounds, Gaethje's got to rally, and there's just not enough time left. So I am tending to lean towards Rafael Fiziev. Like, I know the plus money looks good on Gaethje, but personally, I don't know. A guy coming off that big of a knockout is just, it's not really something I would be looking at. He's 36. He's taken a ton of damage over the years. And I've always been a believer in Fiziev. So I'm going to take Fiziev for the early pick. Would I bet him at minus 140? Probably not. But, yeah, this is the pick show, not the betting show. I'll take him for the early pick, though. To the main event. Great fight. I love when we get a main and a co-main where the odds aren't just, minus 300 or something like that. Both odds are very, very close. So they know they're going to be a competitive fight. Looking at this one, if this fight's on the feet, it's not going to be competitive. It's not going to be competitive unless Ankalaev can really make his takedown threat known. Now, not to say that Ankalaev can't knock out Pereira, but I just don't really think he's all that dangerous on the feet. Like, he has some nice counters on the feet to where he can knock out these guys like a Johnny Walker. Yeah, can knock out a Johnny Walker. Cool. He can finish off a pause. He can TKO an Anthony Smith on the ground who, broke his leg or something. That's cool. But honestly, man, Ankalaev is so plotty on the feet. That's why Jan Blachowicz was chewing up his legs, and Pereira is probably going to chew up his legs. And he's not really super explosive. He's kind of got to find his right timing to land his shots. And when he does, I don't think he has the most power. Like, Rakic was taking his shots and not really flinching. Rakic isn't exactly the most durable guy. Rakic won around on him. Straight kickboxing. I think Rakic is solid, but there's levels to it. Pereira is a different level kickboxer. So on the feet, I don't think it's going to be competitive. So can I trust Ankalaev to take down Alex Pereira? Well, Ankalaev's not really out there looking for takedowns in every fight. He's not out there looking to be a Marab. So can I trust him to grapple in this fight? Can I trust him to chain takedowns? Can I trust him to smother Pereira? Based on what? Like, what film could I watch to be like, yeah, I could trust this guy to go in there with a grappling-heavy game plan? Not many. I mean, the only time that he really did it recently was against Jan Blachowicz after he got his legs kicked off. And he won the last 2 rounds, but, it wasn't exactly pretty to watch. It wasn't exactly like, oh my God, this guy's a beast on the ground. He kind of just took him down, laid on him. Not a ton of ground and pound. There wasn't really any danger for Jan. So I got to go with Pereira. I'm going to take Pereira for the early pick. I hate going against the Russians. I hate going against the guys whose last name ends in V. And it always seems like this is the case, where we get this fan favorite, like a Charles Oliveira against Islam, an Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev, a Volkanovski versus Islam, and the V's prevail. So that's where the little bit of hesitation comes in. Pereira being 37 is obviously not great, but, light heavyweight. Jan Blachowicz was like 40 when he fought Ankalaev, and he was fine. So we'll see. I'm going to take Alex Pereira for the early pick. I just think he's too good of a striker for Ankalaev, and if Ankalaev doesn't grapple, I think he's fucked. So I'll take Pereira for the early pick. I appreciate you for watching. That's the entire UFC 313 breakdown early picks video for you. Like the video for me, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back throughout the week with more content. Till next time, hey, Job Picks. We out.